You are now entering the Take Up, place to gather when the film is over. I'm your host, Joshua Ray, and I'm here with my co-host, the managing editor, thetakeup.com. It is Andrew Wyatt. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Every episode, we get to decide if one film gets to enter the Take Up canon, and today we are talking about Alain Girardin's. You think I did it right? You think I did it right? Misericordia, a new release from 2025 we're going back to, and then we'll have one more thing.
My notes say Alain Girardin.
All right, so this is actually one
Let's
thing.
get the French husband to explain
This is one thing I meant to do before we started recording. My love, mon petit chou. He's going to be so pissed. I actually said to him yesterday, I'm like, you want to be on a podcast? He said, I am not podcasting.
Are you calling him from somewhere else inside the house?
Alain Girardin.
Girardin.
Yeah. Girardin.
I told you it was a hard G.
Yeah, Girardin.
Girardin.
Yeah.
With those phonetic notes in there.
Okay, now, what was the one joke? The joke that he's like, you don't understand that that's a joke. At the end, when they're at the cemetery gates, and the subtitle said, I'll keep watch out.
Oh, that's, I mean, I don't know to what extent it's like an actual joke, but he says, Jeremy says, do you need me to like be on the lookout? And in French, it's faire le guet, but guet, like it's also like do the gay. Like, do you need me to do the gay? So it's not like I doubt that it's like an actual joke, but like when I heard it, I was like, that's funny because that's what they've been doing the entire movie.
Is doing the gay.
Like they've been doing the gay the entire time.
I'm going to say that it probably is an intentional play on words.
I mean, honestly, given the entire movie, it's probably intentional, but like not super important.
I love that shit though. I love it when there's like a native joke buried in there that the non-speakers are never going to get.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the intricacies of all the languages that we'll never understand. It's the bane of a cinephile's existence that we don't know all languages.
And I don't know if it's something you notice, but like even with like line delivery and stuff, it feels very
Deadpan?
Not just deadpan, but like very theater. Like the way that they enunciate is very purposeful and kind of labored, and like it's not a blissful kind of moment. Like it's really like, oh, like we are speaking like this. Like there's something kind
really
of like unnatural, especially in Jeremy's role. Like Kathleen Poe is like absolutely excellent, and she does everything like very, very natural. But there's something always that feels slightly off in the way that Jeremy Pastor speaks. Like a lot of the time, they're like, yeah, I personally like, this is weird that he's doing all of that, and then I was like, oh, like that's just the role that he's playing. His character is
right. He's very Ripley.
And in the way, like in the sentence structure, and a lot of the things, like, oh, this isn't natural. This is very rehearsed, and his character is going to be the only one doing that very aggressively rehearsed thing. So.
He told me he didn't want to do the podcast, and now he's.
That's a great insight. Thanks,
mon frère. What does that mean?
My brother.
My brother. What is husband?
Gross.
Marie.
Yeah.
But didn't you tell me there's a better.
Oh, it's just I don't like the word mari, so I use époux, mon époux.
What does that mean?
Spouse.
Oh. That feels transactional.
No, it feels 17th century.
Oh, that's why he likes it. Okay. Goodbye. Are you sure you don't want to do the podcast?
Girardin.
Girardin.
Okay.
So you went back and watched Stranger by the Lake?
Yes, I rewatched it. So I haven't seen a ton of films by Alain Girardin.
Girardin.
I think Stranger by the Lake, Sting, Vertical, and now Misericordia. I was gonna go and watch one of his other films that I haven't seen, but I was just compelled to go back and watch Stranger by the Lake because I remember really liking it 10 plus years ago when it first came out. and revisited it last night and confirmed that it slaps. I love that movie.
It was kind of an agreed upon like absolute masterpiece banger at the time.
Was
Like
it?
for like high cinema crowd.
Mhm.
I think that was the one that year. What year did that come out? 2013?
Yeah.
At least here.
Distributed by Strand in the US, which I feel like it's like a quintessential type Strand
Oh,
releasing film.
oh yeah, absolutely. And this one that we're talking about today,
Mhm.
we are talking about it. Misericordia. Similar track. I think it played Cannes 2014. It was in competition, and now it's been released this year in the States.
You mean
So,
2024? 2024.
yeah. What did I say? 2025.
You said 2014. Oh,
Jesus, that'd
sorry.
be nice.
It's worth so before we get into the plot, it's worth mentioning the title, which I
Yes.
had Misericordia, which I had heard in reference to a particular kind of ornament or flange on a foldable prayer seat in a Catholic church, where if you fold the seat up, there's like a little bit of a an ornament or a flange on it that gives you some relief from having to stand, so that you're not sitting per se, but you're kind of like leaning your ass against this little ornament,
Thing.
usually with like
Yeah.
a face on it. And the translation is mercy seat, right? It gives
Right.
you some relief from having to stand while they're going through the full mass, I guess.
And then, but its origins are like God's mercy, God's forgiveness. It's like
Yes,
kind of
yes.
um religious concept. So let us
Yeah,
color our conversation with what that title means. I didn't
yeah.
know the word. I'm sorry, I didn't know the word. And then
I think it's appeared in a couple different contexts, but that's the context in which I was aware of it.
so a face that you sit on
Basically, it's,
giving you
can
some relief.
can you summarize this film in less than 5 minutes?
No, but I'm gonna try. All right. So Felix Cassil. Oh man, I'm just gonna butcher all this French. Is playing Jeremy Pastor, and he is traveling to his childhood best friend. His father has died,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to the family home where he grew up, or somewhere. It's in the like bucolic, rural French countryside. I guess I just said a bunch of words that mean the same thing. And his friend Vincent is played by Jean-Baptiste Durand, and his mother, Catherine Font, who is like as I understand it, great French like movie star who hasn't really translated to a lot of films here. And he's there to attend the funeral. As it turns out, I can't summarize this film in 5 minutes, but there's some great kind of tension between Vincent and Jeremy, where I'm not sure how much Vincent is aware that Jeremy was actually had some sort of sexual relationship with his father, the man who has now passed. Um,
Well, at least to the widow, at least to Martine.
yeah, and
Jeremy says that it was unrequited and unconsummated, but we don't know if he's such a slippery character. We don't really know if he's telling the truth.
yeah, and he's sort of sneaking around and overstays his welcome, but Martine is actually welcoming to him, and this film is filled with people who are sort of taking the place of someone else and playing the role of someone else, but not in a sort of pronounced way. This is a very muted film. It's a very deliberately paced film, but I wouldn't even say I'd say it belongs more to the thriller of Claude Chabrol than it does to Hitchcock.
Yeah, Chabrol is exactly what I was thinking of as well.
And not that it doesn't present the kind of tricky, thorny, like performative way people behave in Hitchcock films. But it's just the presentation is very different. And the way that information is doled out is very different too. But as tensions rise between Jean Baptiste, who thinks, or I'm sorry, Vincent and Jeremy, because Vincent is actually accusing him of wanting to sleep with his mother. Things get very physical, and Jeremy murders Vincent in the middle of the woods. And in the middle of the woods, he buries him. But a local priest, played by Jacques Develet, has kind of caught on to what has happened. And as it turns out, that priest carries quite a bit of love or lust or something for Jeremy, and uses it in order to get close to him and to keep him away from the police. And we'll continue talking about it. I'm sorry, because it's a film that, like, the plotting is not at the fore necessarily. It all comes out through characterization. So, but I guess recounting it doesn't do the film very much service because of the way that it unfolds.
Yeah, in as much as that is a thriller, and I think thriller is one of many genres you could sort of basket this into.
Yeah.
It is a decidedly languid thriller, which I think is consistent with what we've seen from Girardi before. But also, yeah, there's something interesting and special in how this film unspools, the way it uses and I promise I'm not just going to turn this into a pod where we enthuse about another film, but it does remind me of Stranger by the Lake in the way it uses repetition and the containment of this provincial setting to give what is ostensibly what could be a more Hitchcockian thriller, intense thriller, and give it a kind of rural French vibe, which I think is really fascinating. I think I don't know to what extent, and this may be a language barrier thing, you could characterize this film as a comedy, but there are parts of it that are pretty funny to me.
It's very fucking funny. And I will say that like great thrillers that tend to reveal like motives as they progress, and, twists and turns. This one is very solid in those, in that the twists and turns come from characterization. They come from behavior. They come from what we end up learning about these people. And I've seen it a second time, and it is even funnier. Because you understand where everyone is coming from in the situations that are presented, you end up seeing different shades of everyone. And you watch the priest and his lingering eyes, you think that he's, on one hand, he does know, like he does innately kind of know what has happened. He's smart, right? But the way that his eyes are lingering over Jeremy is actually sexual. And the question, ultimately, one of the questions the film raises is like, how are those two things tied together? And yes, to take it back to Stranger by the Lake, that plays out. I mean, that film is expressly about that.
Yeah, and I think there are some great. I don't know that Girardi is ever like held up as a great visual stylist, but I do think he really uses setting well and sound design. Like, not a diegetic sound design is used really well in his film, and it's particularly the case here. But I also kind of like some of the, for lack of a better word, theatrical setups that are used as jokes. I love every time Jeremy comes back to the widow's house and finds people sitting around the kitchen table who he would rather not be having a conversation with right this second. It got funnier and funnier every time that joke got repeated. I don't know why, but it just does.
No, I agree. It's so wryly funny, and the kind of built-in really acidic irony throughout this film is really tricky, because you're, part of, maybe it is a language barrier, but part of it is this very insinuating kind of sensuous experience, and you're in the French countryside, and it's all very
there are other people in this town, but it seems like we never meet. It seems like Jeremy keeps running into the same damn 6 people over and over again. And there's a cruel joke to the way that the movie like traps him in that way, that like he can't stop running in to the same people. Girardi kind of
also keep going back to the same
yeah.
few spots where he's allowed to, but I love that kind of repetition throughout.
Yeah.
How each time he revisits a scene, it seems to be under more and more duress.
Right. I mean, and it feels like a little bit of deconstruction of this genre of like murder stories where we're following the murderer, and part of our brains wants him to sort of get away with it. So we're in terror the same way he is whenever we see somebody poking around someplace where they might discover something. So every time Jeremy goes back to the forest where he's buried Vincent and he finds people poking around the actual spot where the body is, somewhat ignorant of what's actually happening there. Like that, it's almost played comedically. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Somebody is still poking around where that body is.
It does have this kind of circular dream logic too that isn't necessarily apparent the first time that I watched it because of this repetition.
Mm-hmm.
I was more or less caught up in the sexuality of it and the plotting of it, and wondering how this title comes in, and it's not without tongue in cheek that he's talking about God's forgiveness, God's mercy in this, and that I don't know that this is a God bearing directed world necessarily. I mean, there's a whole speech that the priest gives at the end about the state of the world that makes me feel like this film is so much smarter or so much trickier than, I don't know, some other films we've talked about recently that are also about, capitalize the state of things. But yeah, I just can't, like, I love this movie a lot. I loved it the first time I saw it, but a second viewing really solidified it as a smart film that's sort of, like you're saying, a genre deconstruction, but also a really tight thriller, because the way that it plays is, as you said, languid
Mm-hmm.
and very muted, but the art behind it is so actually tightly wound that you don't know what you're seeing is sort of the setup for payoffs later on in such a tricky way, but not something that feels directed or written.
Yeah, and when I say languid, it's more just about how it compares to a typical, say I'm an American film that would follow this plot, might be constructed in a slightly different pacing or tone. But there are moments in it where there is an urgency, particularly in sort of like the final third, as Jeremy's getting increasingly close to being caught, and the priest is having to save his skin over and over again. There are some sort of moments where characters are scrambling to cover their tracks or do things. Um, let's talk about the sexuality, because I saw an interesting quote from one of the film festival viewings of this, I guess from last year, where I don't know exactly where it was, but Girardi was in attendance and he described the film. I think maybe it was another critic who was doing the Q&A, described the film as a film where everybody is horny but nobody really acts on it.
No one feels as if they can act on it because their horniness is coming from morally dubious places, or at least culturally inappropriate places. I mean,
It's hard to sort out what desire is pathological and what desire is genuine, if that makes any sense.
it absolutely makes sense. That's the thrust of the film: is where is this coming from? Am I allowed to?
Mm-hmm.
In that Jeremy clearly doesn't really discuss his own family at all. And it's easy to see, I made the comparison to Tom Ripley. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to see him as a Ripley figure as he insinuates himself into this life. I watched it with my husband, and he brought up the Pasolini film Teorema, in which
Mm.
the literal devil figure insinuates himself and fucks everyone in a family. And of course, it's about, Italian fascism and everything that was happening in Italy at the time it was made. And this
Or Danny Glover into Sleep with Anger is the other
Oh,
thing.
to sleep with ears. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's such a good comparison. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and this one kind of meets those two in the middle with its religiosity and its, kind of atheistic view of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you say that, but I also think that the part of what's fascinating about the screenplay here is that scene on the cliff that you brought up, where the priest is talking, basically trying to talk Jeremy down from killing himself, and he sort of gives Jeremy his worldview on ethics and morality and conscience and how God feels about these things. It strikes me, and I think it's just the how good the screenplay is. It strikes me as being beautifully ambiguous in a way where the priest is delivering that monologue with such sincerity. It feels like an earnest statement of his own worldview. But of course, we know that he has every reason to say those things to try to get, like, he's in love with Jeremy, or at least in lust with him. And he has absolutely every reason to say whatever he has to say to get him off that cliff. So we have no way of knowing if he really believes that. But the way it's delivered is with such sincerity, it's hard to take it as a completely cynical statement, if that makes sense.
Unless you watch the next 10 minutes in which he has apparently played out every single possible scenario and knows exactly what to do to get the cops off of Jeremy's back, to get the body out of it.
He's been thinking about it way too much.
He's apparently not got else to do. In which I think this is just one of the great performances of the year. And it's really tricky because he is present throughout the film, and it's always kind of a looming figure in the back, and he starts to come to the fore as Jeremy is mushroom hunting. And we can talk about the whole thing about mushroom equals death. Like, here we go.
Or dick.
Well,
it's not a mistake what morals look like. Let's just
oh my God. It's funny how I hadn't thought about that. But it's because he is very priestly. He is very,
he looks exactly like what you imagine a French provincial priest with the parish priest would look like. Yeah.
Exactly. And the film opens properly on his funeral as he's giving the eulogy. And it's a beautifully like wrote but performed eulogy, but he's also kind of, like in your head how it is in these very small villages. He's such a part of the community too, in that he's at your kitchen table and he doesn't say much, but he sees a lot. But I love like in Stranger by the Lake, this area of desire that is hidden outside, but it's also like a locus of meeting in the community too. Like, it's so incredibly open that everyone, there's couples out there morel hunting. We don't see them. Again, we see like 6 people in this. Oh, sorry, I just got really sidetracked because I told Victor I was going to make the joke that this film is a real two-hander. Oh God. We'll explain. If you haven't seen the film, there is something that happens in this film that is really just, it is the jump scare of the year.
Well, I mean, in some ways it is a tame film in terms of nudity compared to Garrity's other films.
Yeah, I mean,
like it is not wall to wall with cock and balls the way some of his other films are.
And fluids.
But there is a little bit of nudity, but it's presented in such a wait, what? kind of way.
I think it is so intentionally, deliciously funny, and such a kind of revelatory thing that the priest has this massive dick. Like, it is not just a joke. It to me, it presents this kind of like assertion of power, like that he is fully aware of what's happening and that he gets out of bed with it fully erect. And this whole film is really about like how people are using their sexual power against each other and finding ways of insinuating themselves into others' lives because of their desires. And
let's stop for a minute. Let's chart. I need to chart all the the infographic that explains all the weird relationships in this film. Okay,
Yes.
so
And there's
Jeremy,
a key figure in here who we have not talked about.
there's Jeremy and the widow Martine, who have a somewhat mother-son crypto thing going on, but maybe also a pseudo-sexual thing. It's hard to say. Like as
And the
him as him
ambiguity of
coming,
it.
the conflict comes from the son, Vincent, assuming that Jeremy is being sort of slotted into the husband role, even
Yeah.
though both he and Martine sort of like push back against it and say that it's not the case at all. But of course, once it's been put into our heads, and the film ends with both of them asleep in the same bed, we can't help but stop and think of it. But there is a weird maternal Oedipal thing going on where like she comes in and brings him clothes when he's showering and she doesn't seem ashamed by it at all.
Well, and part of that is everyone in this film, and we can continue charting it because I really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in this film is using someone else to their own ends and making someone else it's to a vertiginous, and I mean a vertigo effect, making someone into someone else for their own means. He's dressing up in the dead father's clothes for really sexual purposes and to get close to him. He wears his underwear. We see him do it again, and she's kind of like, I have no underwear. However, she's gradually like dressing him in his clothes, and the very final beat of the film is between the two of them consummating the relationship in the way that they need to, in like a kind of pseudo like Oedipal figure for him and dead husband for her.
Which, and the fact that Jeremy had at minimum had an unrequited love for the husband who he is replacing just makes it all the more psychologically sticky.
And then Jeremy and Vincent have some kind
There's
of
something weird. Something happened between those two men.
the way they roughhouse is a little too kinky for me.
Yeah.
It is like the kind of like we were young and do you think they explored each other's bodies type situation?
But the Ripley comparison is so apt because of how Jeremy is slotting into, excuse the phrase, slotting into so many roles. Like, okay, so there's that tension between him and Vincent, which then becomes sort of argumentative, and you wonder, like, is Vincent pushing back and being so hostile because he doesn't like thinking about what happened between them back then? But then we also get the detail that Jeremy is staying in Vincent's childhood room, which makes it all the more weird. But we also have obviously the relationship between Jeremy and the priest, which evolves over the course of the film and becomes this weird hostage situation, blackmail, but also weirdly sweet and earnest. I don't even know how to describe the nature of that relationship.
This movie's logline is two things can be true.
Two things can be true. There's also another sort of the other major character, I guess, who is a mushroom. I get the impression that he's like a mushroom hunter, but also a farmer named Walter, who may have had some kind of business relationship with the bakery that the dead husband slash father ran. I get the impression that like this town, like everybody just kind of has some kind of commercial connection. Yeah, commercial connection to each other. But Walter's like an older man, older sort of classic provincial, older French peasant man, and he has some kind of weird relationship with both Vincent and Jeremy that Jeremy sort of tries to bring up to a sexual level, and he's rebuffed, but maybe not. A lot of people are very confused about their sexuality in this film.
I don't know. This, if you're like queer one-on-one, everyone's a little gay.
Kind of. This is a movie where everybody, I mean, you say that in jest, but this definitely.
No, I don't.
The text of this film absolutely says that everybody's a little bit gay.
Yeah. Sure does. But
Walter's an interesting character, right? Too. He kind of serves as a demi reflection of the priest, in that he's forced into a position where he has to make alibis for Jeremy, but maybe not as willingly, not as wholeheartedly as the priest does, and he's also has some kind of friendship or relationship with Vincent, where he's kind of like running interference between them. But we also get these farcical scenes of him, literally throwing Jeremy out with his clothes in his underwear and shooting after him with a shotgun to get him to run away.
Which
I mean,
makes it sound like a Russ Meyer movie, but
yeah, there's obviously like a farcical element to it, right?
yeah. But Walter is also like Jeremy has a type. I could break out a chart for this, but I won't. But he definitely is into older men, it seems. But Jeremy also talks about like an old girlfriend or something. So I don't know that all of this isn't dormant. I mean, the film leaves a lot open considering how kind of tight it is actually, and how tight the spider web of it all is, and the connections, because it's like you're saying, like we've already uncovered at least what, like 8 different formations of relationships in this.
And again, the way that the film kind of like repeats itself and circles back over and over again, and the increasing sense of that Jeremy is both entrapped in this town and also voluntarily deciding he doesn't want to leave. Um, Two things can be true again at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a mysterious film, but not mysterious in the way that the other Ghiardi films that I've seen are. It like on paper, the plot is pretty straightforward. There's no ambiguity about what's happened, but at the same time, there is this air of ambiguity and mystery. And as you say, it has more to do with characterization than it has to do with what's physically happened in the plot.
But all of this is to thematize the kind of chaotic nature of the world that it seems Ghiardi is coming after, the kind of violent nature of man. And all of these impulses are, one is everyone has their kind of moral compass, but actually everything's pointing in the same direction. It doesn't actually make sense. There's no logic for the way that we behave. We're just violent creatures.
Violent and lustful, I think, is the combination, right? Like
Yes.
there's not a
I'm
lot
not
of
differentiating the two.
right. Lust is violence in a way. The part that I jumps out at me is like the key line in the film in terms of the film's moral worldview is from that scene on the cliff where the priest asks Jeremy, would you, would you
Yeah.
go to jail, or would you,
Would you do a 50-year sentence with a death penalty if it means bringing Vincent back from the dead?
Yeah, and Jeremy quickly and sort of emphatically says, maybe takes a beat to think about it. He goes, no, I wouldn't. And the priestess says basically like, well, there you have it. Like clearly your conscience is okay with murder on some level. And he's not wrong about that, right? Like that Jeremy, whatever he felt for Vincent and however much guilt he feels in general for taking a human life, at the end of the day, he doesn't feel like he should be punished for what he did, which is a remarkable statement for a film that grapples this forthrightly with the morality of violence and the morality um, of guilt and punishment. It's sort of a remarkable statement just to come out and say it like that.
It's beautifully done too, and we should talk about the visual style of this film. This film is in 2.35, really wide screen, but the style of this film is very painterly and very kind of traditional, like landscape, which is odd. I usually associate that with film because I'm so old school, but it's clearly made digitally. But it kind of is in service of the detail of this landscape and the autumnal landscape.
Those yellow leaves in the forest is the detail, that the visual sort of detail that I really like. The way that the tactile, again shot digitally, but the tactile quality of the wet dead leaves on the ground and the mushrooms sprouting up through them, and that great shot we get where the blood is spattered on it and Jeremy sort of surreptitiously tries to cover up the bloody leaves. But yeah, and the wide shots as well. Ghiardi has called himself a rural filmmaker. Like he loves these settings. He loves, in as much as we think of French cinema as a sort of urban in the heart of Paris or wherever. This is a filmmaker who loves that countryside. I think it's telling that all his films are ostensibly set in the year that they're released, like they're contemporary films, but the technology of like smartphones and so forth doesn't even come up. It's not that the film is ambiguous, the time period is ambiguous, it's that it's irrelevant to the stories that he's telling. Um, it's there's a sense in which Stranger by the Lake,
Timelessness.
yeah, the Stranger by the Lake could be placed anywhere between 1980 and 2010. Like it doesn't matter for the plot. And it's similarly here. Like I feel like I think maybe there was an early. Is there a scene where Jeremy takes out his phone and fiddles with it? I can't quite remember, but I don't think
Yeah,
it
it's
ever comes
there,
up.
like you're saying, they're contemporaneous to the time, but it's not,
But
it doesn't factor in, like they're not pinging cell phone towers to figure out where he was.
no, the
The
police in this
police,
film. Oh
right?
my God.
I watched it the second time last night. It was the first time my husband saw it, and he's like, he's gonna go for that cop. Like, under normal circumstances, it does appear that the cop would be his type. Um, but the autumnal quality
Mhm.
of the well, just the time, because it's a rebirth, right? It's
Mhm.
death into life and the cyclical nature. It works just really well to visually thematize everything that he's after here. And I think I have two shots that really stick out when Priest and Jeremy are digging up Vincent's body, and their hands are coming down. It's a close up of Vincent's face as his body is still buried, but they're uncovering it from the dirt,
Mhm.
and it achieves this kind of like religious iconography to it, the way that he's like,
Well, there's a pieta shot, right, where the priest pulls him out and is holding
yes,
him,
yeah, right after
right?
that. And I love their hands kind of reaching into it. It's very kind of morbidly artful and beautiful. It's like a William Blake thing. But there's also a shot of them exiting or going into the church at the wee hours of the morning, and it has this slight glow of the moon in the back, and it's not obvious. They're not like presentational scenes.
Mhm.
Very delicately done. But if you were to pop it out, you might think that they're kind of like Renaissance or Catholic paintings.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I think. And I think that's very intentional that uh Geraghty doesn't tend to sort of linger indulgently. He gives you these like quick, breathtaking little bits here and there that and again, I want to focus on also want to talk about the sound design because I feel like this is something that he does really well, which is um use the natural environment, wind and leaves rustling and limbs creaking, and the birds and insects are always such an essential part of the soundscape of his films. There's not, I don't think do any of his films use music? Again, I've only seen three of them, but does he
And
ever
I've only
use?
seen the two. The only thing that you could describe as music in this is car sounds.
Mhm.
So I was listening very intently to that because it sounds like kind of a low Badalamenti drone, but I think
Mhm.
it's actually just the car. But of course, the moments where they're in the car are the moments that you might score with a low Badalamenti drone. Uh,
Right.
yeah, this film is deceptively simple.
Mhm.
It's cranked with so many different gears, cranked up with so many different gears, but it is not a film in any means, I think, unless maybe you count like a massive erect dick, where you would call it stylistically brawny.
Yeah, and I think that gets to what, but maybe even the nudity is itself kind of like that. That I watched a uh, little interview with Geraghty that he did to accompany the currently like Criterion streaming exclusive of this film, So if you want to watch Misericordia, I guess we could say right now that you can watch it on the Criterion channel right now. They're sort of exclusively streaming it, and they also have a little accompanying interview with him.
And physical media supporters, there's a disc.
Yes,
Disc has been released.
about 15 or 20 minutes. And one of the things he says in that, with respect to nudity and sex in his films, is that he considers himself a filmmaker of the proletariat body, and by that he means he's really interested in. I mean, obviously, there are beautiful people in his films. Sort of young, slim, hairless men obviously become like an important part of his filmography, but he's also, I think, just as essential. The thing I think of when I think of this filmmaker is he is not ashamed to show male nude bodies and sex with men who do not fit that beauty standard, with older men, with fatter men, with saggier men. He's interested in those bodies just as much as he's interested in sort of the classic smooth skinned twink, you know?
It doesn't feel like pornography.
No,
it's not like titillation in a traditional way. It feels like exploration to me.
Yeah, I think in Stranger there are some shots that are sort of deliberately meant to be cheeky in a way that evokes hetero sex scenes. But so much of it is blunt and matter of fact in a way that pornographic isn't the right word, erotic isn't even the right word. It's more just almost documentarian in the sense
matter
that
of fact.
Here's what, a fat 60-year-old man looks like naked, and that's just something we don't see in films that often.
Or online on certain websites.
Yeah.
Well, maybe my keywords are wrong. I don't know.
Refine your searches.
Nah, I wouldn't. Anyway.
And I think what Walter is part of that in this film, right? That even though Walter doesn't actually have any nude scenes, like his
body is sexualized.
Yeah, his body is sexualized. And part of his discombobulation and uncertainty about how to handle Jeremy is his absolute unfamiliarity with being desired like that.
By anyone, seemingly.
Male, female, whatever. That, like, the fact that anybody is looking at him the way that Jeremy is looking at him, like, puts him off and just like completely befuddles him.
Well, his reaction in throwing him out is more about how he's supposed to behave, because he circles back around and it's like, it just took me off guard. And it's more like, I don't know how to react to anyone. And the fact that he's seemingly, living a life of loneliness. You look at his house and it's like, that's way too much space for you. And clearly because you're just filling it with newspapers and junk. And your dirty underwear everywhere.
Dirty undies.
Yeah, forgot about.
But
Felix,
the lesson of this film is that pastis is a drink that will lead to things.
So the first time I watched it, I text my husband, who is French, but I'm like, I text him, I said, "What is pastis?" And he's like, "Where the fuck did you hear that from?" But when we watched it last night, he saw the heavy-handed pour. He's like, what are we doing here? It's just like this.
It's supposed to be like a digestif. Like, it's not supposed to. You get it in a little cordial cup, supposedly. But these people are drinking it in the morning, like first thing in the morning. Generous pours,
like like draft beer. That's what it. I mean, bleh, it looks so gross to me. It comes out clear, and then suddenly it's cloudy, and it's not carbonation. Like, what is that? Why are you doing that?
It's an anise spirit, so it's sort of in the. I think it's in the same category that things like Sambuca and Ouzo are in. Like, it's heady. It is not a drink for lightweights at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I can feel it on my teeth. Like, look.
I think it's very sweet too. Like, it's sweet and high alcohol content.
You're making it so much better.
I wouldn't turn my nose up at it. If somebody offered me a pastis at 9 a.m., I wouldn't turn my nose up at it.
All right. That's Misericordia. You know what? I've got 5 votes. Fuck it. We ball. Misericordia is going in.
Really? Wow.
I love this movie a lot. And I think it points to a lot of ideas that I love in film, and a lot of filmmakers that I love. and is done in a very specific way to GRD, it appears, but the alchemy that happens and the thematization of everything here is so smart, so delicately done about very heady things that I think it's just absolutely brilliant. And I have like small reservations here and there about it, but I mean, I don't know that it's one of the best films ever made, but I'm looking at our list and I think we gotta get a little gayer.
Well, I think he's a great filmmaker to add to the list because, again, based on the narrow slice of his features that I've seen, he falls into this category of filmmakers that I would call nobody is doing it quite like this. And I don't mean that in a way that, the way that some people sort of use the phrase, nobody makes movies like this anymore. I mean, he's a singular filmmaker based on the three features that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate that in the same way that, I think a lot of people who sort of get a slot at Cannes, no matter what they're doing, like Cannes will give them a slot, and he's kind of become one of those filmmakers where it's just nobody's making films quite like this, and that uniqueness and that obvious intelligence in how he constructs his films, I think makes it a really good pick. I personally prefer Stranger by the Lake a little more, but that's maybe just because of the sort of genius of its construction and its elliptical mood and everything. I really respond. As a straight viewer, I love Stranger by the Lake. I don't know what that says about me, but I
Yeah,
like
fine.
the I
Everyone's a
like
little gay. Sorry.
rewatching it again last night. The way that Misericordia returns to that Martine's kitchen table reminds me of the way that Stranger by the Lake returns to that gravel parking lot with those cars pulling up every day at the cruising spot. Like that use of repetition for a thriller deconstruction, I think is sort of such a fascinating choice. And it speaks to the intelligence of Girardi's filmmaking and his writing. We should also mention that he's kind of a polyglot. Like he's also a novelist. He's done a lot of different things.
I
He
don't know enough
co-edits.
about this man. Clearly, I would love to
He
just
co-edits his
read.
film. He does.
Yeah.
He loves post-production, he says. So he co-edits his films. He seems like a very sort of multi-talented figure. So
Well, Demon Twink, you go into the take up bunker. Probably
love
where
it.
you belong. Just don't get into anything with Anton Chigurh down there.
Or Travis Bickle, God forbid.
Oh my god.
Poor
Poor
guy.
fucking Willa from One Battle. She's really got a lot to handle down there, but
Got a lot of
I think
toxic
she can
males in
handle
there.
it. Yeah, that's a stinky bunker. That bunker smells
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. All right.
There's some funk in there.
Yeah, there's some funky stuff happening. Okay, cool. Well, on top of anointing our second 2025 film, we do know older films and they're coming. In fact, next week we're going to be talking with Drew Wendt from Do You Like Apples and his cinephilic awakening that is The Graduate, Mike Nichols'
Ooh,
Graduate.
another boomer classic.
Is that the earliest we've talked about?
I think so.
We love even earlier than that.
I've got some potential picks.
Yeah.
Like when we have some lulls, I've got some deliberate older picks.
Oh my god, we should probably apologize for promising fucking Frankenstein.
Oh yeah,
Netflix,
I got stymied.
Get it together. Like I'm not blaming us. It's on Reed Moreno or whatever his name is.
We'll get to it, and we'll get to. I have a feeling we'll get to Guillermo del Toro eventually as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling we will too. Anyway, Andrew, I've got one more thing, and in honor of talking about contemporary film, I'm going to point people to my favorite Netflix. But Netflix picked up this documentary called The Perfect Neighbor this year.
My wife just watched this. She was telling me about it.
It's a film that is ostensibly on a really high level about stand your ground laws, and an incident that happened in Florida during which a white woman shot her black neighbor, a mother of 4, and she died. But the film is mostly comprised of body cam footage from the police. And so like it plays like, you know, paranormal activity, if I'm being really ungenerous, in found footage, but is so steeped in actual reality where no one is really aware that a camera is watching them. And it has the same kind of like burning pit in your stomach feeling that we're talking about with the repetition here, because you're seeing every recorded police visit to this neighborhood where this woman is, it's all motivated by race, and why that, and it doesn't immediately become clear, but ultimately the film argues that, and it is, you know, by its end, a film about how we live now in the same way that we're talking about this film. But it's so, I can't even say that it's involving, because you're literally on the body of the people in the scenes. And it does have cutaways. It's not exclusively comprised of body cam footage, but it's really smart in the way that it is about the surveillance state, about policy, about policing, but also about community. And it's such a rich film for how sparse it is in any kind of traditional filmmaking. You know, there is context provided throughout. You know that the woman is shot. It opens on that scene, on that 911 call, with a police dash cam footage of one of the officers rushing to the scene. And then it is kind of structured around the investigation in audio only, as these scenes of the police visiting the scene. And it's really unrivaled in the kind of involving nature of what it is. And it's, you know, that sound in itself sounds kind of simplistic or stupid, but the very idea of it, of course, is going to play that way. And
it's fascinating to hear you talk about it like that, because that style of documentary true crime filmmaking, where we're just picking up using police interrogation cams and police body cams and dash cams and so forth, and using a 911 calls, has always struck me as sort of like lowest hanging fruit. But the way you're talking about it makes it sound like
it's
not that at all.
it's because that can feel very inhumane, right? And that it becomes about,
yeah.
it becomes about investigation. This film is not about investigation. This film is about these people. And it just so happened that there's a camera a camera that is recording the events as they unfold over a year plus. It's really astounding filmmaking. There's some choices in it that I question, but ultimately, as a kind of political act that it is, I think it's beautifully done. And that it reserves the trial to play during the closing credits is smart, because it is telling you it is about the people. It is not necessarily about the process.
Yeah, not the legal twist and turn so much.
And that it is about the people ultimately reveals that it's a politically minded film. Yeah, I think it's just really phenomenal work, and it's on Netflix streaming, and it looks like it's going to be one of their standard true crime docs. It is not. It is something, definitely no children should be watching this, because it is, you know, about the way that the childhood is taken from her kids. Anyway, going on too long about it, you should definitely check it out. It's called The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix. And elsewhere, you can find me on KMOV in St. Louis, but you can also find me at the Take Up STL on social media. Andrew, you got anything more pleasant to talk about?
More pleasant in the sense that not about a real world thing, but I wanted to kind of keep with the vibe of weird, queer, psychosexual nonsense. Um, and talk about a film. I was going through before I stopped using Letterboxd regularly, I was going through my diary to try to remember things that I watched since we had our hiatus on this pod. Like what did the last night, what was I watching during the last 9 months? I don't remember exactly, including some older films. And one of the older films that I discovered that I'd never seen before, and I said, I need to watch this because I've heard people talk about it, is um, Joseph Losey's 1963 film, British film, The Servant, written by Harold Pinter. This was a film I sort of watched on Prime, I think. Like I saw it was free, so I just decided to watch it. I loved it so much. I feel like this is a good metric, the Criterion metric. If you watch a movie blind and love it, and you immediately go out and buy it on Criterion, that to me is a good sign of a film. So how to even describe this film? So this is a sort of class and psychosexual thriller of sorts. It's really like basically a four-hander about this sort of upper crust guy in Britain who he's not like living at a country estate. He's like has an urban townhouse, and he hires a butler to sort of take care of his needs. And the film is really about the weird relationship between this man and his butler, and then the other sorts of two characters that are in the mix are um the posh guy's fiance, and then the butler has a girlfriend question mark who he passes off as his sister and gets in sort of insinuated parasite style into the house. He like gets the posh guy to hire this woman who he says is his sister as a maid, but she's really his lover, and it gets extremely sexually confused really fast, and the power dynamics get really confused and grotesque in a way that is sort of fascinating to watch. If this movie had been made this year, it would be fascinating. The fact that it was made in 1963 makes it like just doubly fascinating. Incredible barn burner performances, beautiful black and white, sort of very, very of the mid 20th century British cinema, but filmed with great intelligence. Obviously, a great screenplay from Harold Pinter. I was immediately blown away by it. Have you seen it, Josh?
I have never seen it.
Oh, great film, highly recommended.
I'm sure Losey's one who's hard to get a handle on because he made so many films, and then he had that period where he was exiled because of the blacklist, and he's so hit or miss because he made so many films, but they're all interesting.
So this is sort of an instant went into my like personal canon instantly. That's how great it is. Just the character that it has a certain play-like feel. It's actually based on a novella, not a play, but it has a certain play-like feel.
Did Pinter write the novella?
No, adapted for somebody else. Yeah. Cool. So it has that sort of like three creative minds involved in getting it to the screen, which is sort of interesting. But it's one of those, like, the character dynamics are so fascinating to me and so toxic and grotesque in the places that they mutate into and the way that things develop. It's just great. I really enjoyed it and highly recommend it. And there is like I don't want to speak to it because I don't necessarily have the experience, but there is like a strong queer subtext there that even I picked up on the first time. So it's a fascinating film from a lot of dimensions. Highly recommended. Pausing for a second here. Let me make sure. I'm going to tell people to see it. I want to see, find out where they can watch it.
Hot, chaotic, bisexual mess is one of my mutuals reviews.
Then that sounds like a correct.
Phantom Thread meets Parasite meets Homo. Yeah, no, I'm watching this immediately.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a bunch of places.
Where can you find it? At the Barnes and Noble Criterion sale soon.
Great. Again, I feel like that to me is like a high recommendation. If I went out and bought it immediately after watching it, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Banger film. You can find me at thetakeup.com.
Very cool. Again, next week we will be back with The Graduate, a film no one's heard of.
Which I haven't seen in like 20 years. It's going to be a while to revisit it. Yeah.
I feel like I watch it probably every 5 years. I always have a kind of different experience with it. So I'm excited. I like Mike Nichols a lot. And I like Drew Went a lot. He's the one who's picking it. He's coming from Do You Like Apples? We had Billy Rock on earlier this season. So that will be a lot of fun. So Ethan Tarantella, you know what? Thank you for producing, editing the show. Kale McCall, are you out there? Thank you for the social media. Theme music by AMP. And until then, hello, darkness, my old friend. Come to talk with you again. We'll always sing.